have one question, because sometimes we have investors that want access to capital, but in the real estate world, we'll say, the property they want the capital on to be able to purchase is not financeable by a typical lending institution. So they'll use a hard money lender. So I think for those people that have to look at alternative forms of lending or are willing to look at alternative forms of lending, I think this makes a lot of sense. And would some IBC people then end up being hard money lenders?
We do that all the time. I've been a hard money lender for some real estate ventures, and we've got clients all over the place, all over the nation that are syndicating real estate, that are, we have a ton of real estate clients who love helping the guy who's beating the street, right? Like he's got to find the money because oftentimes they're hitting the pavement and knocking the doors because they're trying to get started in real estate or whatever. They're trying to get their first 30 doors and they need capital. Who's going to be their silent partner? Someone with access to capital, someone with an infinite banking policy. And so we've got people who they look for opportunities like that, where it's like, who's the guy that I would want to be partnered with that's out there doing the work, but I can finance.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things about infinite banking that's so cool, just the simple fact that I have a policy that is growing and compounding and all these wonderful things, and I can grab at any time I need to buy a car, or if it's big enough, I need to buy a house, or whatever it happens, I need to send the kids to college. However, you are going to make yourself significantly wealthier if you realize you have access to capital, and you can use that to lend to somebody else in a way that now, but again, then so it's interesting, all of those opportunities become, like, you could be an IBC person for 30 years, but you're only still taking care of your own needs, or you can end up using it ultimately
100%
to become wealthy.
Yep. And that's dependent on the different people, and why I maintain relationships with all my clients, because they're like, people ask me, what do you do? And I say, I look for opportunity.
Right.
Now I own 3 businesses. My partner owns 7 and my other one owns 40.
Right.
So, and all of them have a ton of real estate as well. So how do we look for opportunities to deploy capital to help someone else win while also creating passive cash flow for us?
Correct.
It's a huge reason. Like when we talk about bankers in the banking equation, there's a depositor, an owner, and a borrower. If I own a banking system and that money is not being deployed, there's a problem with that, right? And you can be a risk-averse banker and just sit there and say, I'm just going to deploy capital on my next house, on my next health bill, on my next car, whatever it might be, and keep it really self-focused. Or you could take that and go add to the marketplace. And that's where the really successful come into play.
And Kellyanne particularly, well, actually, Kyle, this will apply to you as well, since you have a parcel of young kids too. I just saw an interview with a guy that wrote a book about like the shifting labor market because of AI, and like how there's this ongoing conversation around the advent of, or this is the push for universal basic income, because so many jobs are going to be lost, and so people are going to become actually more dependent on the system. Hold on, because but this guy's book was talking about that from a solution orientation standpoint, it's a wonderful opportunity for the younger generations, your children, to learn, to be taught how to become, once again, more entrepreneurial,
resilient,
100%,
and resilient, and using effective tools like the infinite banking policies or concept to be able to position themselves so that no matter what happens with artificial intelligence in the future, they're not thinking the same old way, school of thinking, the conventional way of thinking. They're not thinking, I have to go to college, I have to get my engineering job or whatever, and and I'll be set for the next 30 years and then get my retirement pension plan or whatever. These kids are not thinking that way.
Good.
So but they need something to replace that, right? So this is a golden position opportunity to say, for these young kids, start training them to start thinking independently, and one of the best ways to so we have had an increasing the process has been this evolving centralization of the banking system, where we've had more and more of the local smaller banks going by the way of the dodo bird, right? And banking's become more and more and more and more centralized and controlled. And the key is, how do we reverse that trend? How do we decentralize the banking system? There's no better way to decentralize the banking system than to have individuals set up as their own individual bank, right?
And be able to do that lending function
local
for
banks are
people.
great. Credit unions are great. They're all wonderful, and we need more of them.
But they're going the
But-
opposite direction.
But
Less.
there is nothing probably more potent and more powerful than the opportunity for the individual. Have you ever heard of the term subsidiarity?
I don't think so.
So subsidiarity, have you? You have.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the concept subsidiarity is about that. Basically, anytime that there's a problem, the best way to resolve it is at the most local level that there is. Right? It's local control, local resolve. I think it actually ties back to Moses, to the concept of Moses. But the
You can't get more local.
you can't
than your
get more
family.
local than than the individual in their own family, right? So what is the instrument or the tool or the vehicle that needs to be further educated upon and developed and deployed in the public sphere in order to go that direction to counter what's going to happen in the future with the artificial intelligence movement if we do have people that become displaced? Just understand right now, position yourself in a way where you don't become displaced, because you take that ownership and that control back, not just of your bank or your banking function, but your own freaking life.
That's what my dad always says. Don't be a sheep.
100%.
Don't be a sheep.